Alex was a man painted in shades of gray. His life was a predictable loop of alarm clocks, instant coffee, and spreadsheets that blurred into one another. He sat at his kitchen table, a mountain of bills casting a long shadow over his meager dinner. Each envelope felt like a fresh wound, a stark reminder of a life lived on the edge of just enough. On his way home, a flicker of color from a corner store caught his eye a lottery sign, shimmering with the promise of what if. On a whim, a tiny act of rebellion against his beige existence, he bought a ticket. That evening, the world tilted on its axis as the numbers were called out on the late-night news. Alex stared at the small slip of paper in his hand. One by one, the numbers matched. The room fell silent, the ticking of the clock growing louder until it was a drumbeat in his ears. He had won. He had actually won. A laugh, sharp and incredulous, escaped his lips, shattering the quiet monotony of this life forever. The next morning was a blur of adrenaline and disbelief. The deadline to claim the prize was today at 5 p.m. A frantic energy propelled him through his apartment as he searched for his wallet, his keys, the winning ticket he'd secured in an old envelope. He sprinted out the door, the city a whirlwind of noise and motion around him. He reached the train station, his breath catching in his chest. The train to the capital was just about to depart. With a final, desperate push, he leaped through the closing doors, collapsing into a seat. Relief washed over him, sweet and potent. But as the train rumbled on, a sense of unease began to creep in. The familiar urban sprawl was replaced by rolling green hills, a cheerful announcement for a town he'd never heard of echoed through the carriage. A cold dread settled in his stomach. He was on the wrong train. He stumbled off at the next stop, a picture postcard town that felt a world away from his destination. The air was clean, the streets were quiet, and his phone had no signal. Panic began to set in. He approached an old man tending to his garden, his voice trembling as he asked for directions. The man, with a kind, unhurried smile, pointed him towards the town square. There, a small group of locals were chatting by a fountain. They listened to his frantic story with a mixture of amusement and sympathy, offering him a glass of water and guiding him towards a small, weathered bus stop tucked behind the local bakery. They assured him the next bus to the city was due, though they couldn't say exactly when. The minutes ticked by, each one a lifetime. Finally, the bus arrived, a lumbering old vehicle that seemed to groan under the weight of his anxiety. As it merged onto the highway, the city skyline appeared on the horizon. A concrete mirage she was desperate to reach. The journey was excruciating. The bus was caught in a snarl of rush hour traffic, every red light a personal affront, every honking horn a note in his symphony of stress. Alex gripped the ticket in his pocket, his knuckles white, his eyes fixed on the digital clock at the front of the bus. For 45, for 52, for 58, the bus pulled up to his stop, and he launched himself out the door, running faster than he ever had in his life. He burst through the glass doors of the lottery headquarters, his lungs on fire. He leaned against the reception desk, gasping for air, and held out the crumpled ticket. The receptionist glanced at the clock on the wall dotted red for 59 p.m. A slow smile spread across her face as she took the slip of paper. The final scene is of Alex standing outside the building, the city lights beginning to twinkle around him. He is utterly exhausted, his clothes disheveled, but in his hand, he clutches the official confirmation of this win. A triumphant, weary smile lights up his face. The race was over. He had made it.